Hey YouTube, how you doing? Kevin here, coming back at you with a problem. I have a problem. The problem is this bike, my 1979 KM100, smokes like this. Nobody's business. I mean, look at the oil on my rim. Look at the oil, the soot on my chain. This is a bad oiler. A very, very, very bad oiler. In fact, it has taken the oil out of my tank. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this was full and now it's down to here. Okay, and so basically on one of my videos I showed you how to adjust the oil. I have adjusted this oil like one time and it's been perfect ever since, right where it's supposed to be. But when an oiler goes, they typically over oil. So today's discussion is automatic oilers, okay, and what happens when they go and the reason why they fail and the reasons why they work the way they do. So my little guy's coming out to work on his little bike as I'm working on mine. He's getting his toolkit. And he's coming over right now with his toolkit because, yeah, I'm working on my bike over here. You gonna work on yours? Yeah, here he comes right now. He's got his toolkit. All right, you got your toolkit to fix your bike? Yeah, I'm doing my bike right now. So anyway, back on the oiler. I'm gonna teach you guys how to fix this, and well, not fix it, but replace it, because you really don't take these apart. These are non-serviceable. What happens is there's a piece of plastic inside there and the cam, they wear out. And normally, typically from sitting, like as this one did, and it floods the engine with oil. And when it floods it with oil, they may or may not start. And when it does, it'll smoke you right out. So I'm going to show you one problem that's very important to check on any one of these oilers. This is on all the Kawasaki's. Anything with an automatic oiler. If it has an oil tank, it's going to have a vent tube. The vent tube typically, yeah, using a wrench? Alright, cool.
What color is the wrench?
Typically, you'd have this this hose right here. This is a vent. You want to make sure there's no kinks in it and it's not crimped. And there's no dirt inside of it.
It's not running very well. It's not running very well, Mom.
Alright, YouTube. I just had to help my son get his bike. He's working on his bike right now as I'm working on mine. So, alright, back on this oiling thing. If this tube right here is plugged, what happens is, while this is trying to suck the oil down, it can't. It creates a vacuum inside here, kind of like when you stick your finger over your straw and in the milk, and you pull the milk up and there's still all the milk inside the straw, and then you let go of it and then it all comes out. Same effect. So you want to make sure that this tube, it's very imperative that this tube is clear and can vent, because if it can't vent, it's going to create a vacuum inside your tank and no oil is going to go down here, which is a very typical thing to have failed. In fact, when I got this bike, there was a spider nest in there right about there. So did that cause it to fail? Well, it could have damaged it when the guy had the bike running before I got it. Could have done that. So, and the other thing is, you want to make sure that your notch marks right there line up. I don't know if you can see that too well on the camera here. I'm going to see if I can. Yep, there you can see it now. There is a scribe line right there, right there by the tip of the screwdriver. See that line? It goes to the adjacent line on the casting of the block. To adjust it, because when you turn the throttle, that moves, and that gives you your mixture. Okay. What happens is, over time, cable stretch, adjustments are made, you adjust your throttle, it changes it. Every time you change the throttle, you change this. So you need to adjust this every time you adjust your throttle. 10mm jam screw right here. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me show you that again. My camera was advanced. Every time you give it throttle, it moves it. You want to make sure your two lines are lined up right there when it's at idle. And anytime you do an adjustment on your throttle cable, you want, like if you adjusted this, say you adjusted this nut cable at the end right up here, you're going to have to adjust it down here because it's going to be off. It's going to be like that, or wherever, you know, anywhere in between this. So you want to make sure that those two lines mix up. This pump, hold on, buddy. This pump right here keeps a 32-to-1 ratio throughout your whole entire running process. So in order to keep that running properly, you need to maintain this oil pump. Now, if you're not getting oil down to it, you're going to want to undo that little screw up top there. If you're not seeing any smoke or anything like that, you're going to want to take off this screw and bleed out the air. There could be air in this line. So if there's air in the line, that should bleed the screw right there. And it's easy to access if you go like this. Take your oil line. See if I can show you this. Yeah, I got the sunlight in the video. But you just move your grommet off to the side. And now you can easily access it. You can go right down through where the grommet was, right to that screw. So I have another one, another used pump, and I'm going to remove that from another bike motor I have that I know is good, and I'm going to swap them out. This has been an absolutely great bike, and it's blowing way too much oil, and the oil that it's blowing is getting on my tire, and oil on a tire does two things. It rots out the tire and makes it for a very slick riding condition. So that's how that is. And I also was asked another question about oil. Some people use Walmart oil, some people use high-end oil. Honestly, I've never had an issue with oil, but I'm gonna grab the sheet of paper that I use when I buy oil. See if I have my keys over here. Whenever I do oil, I actually kept the label because I buy the same one. Hold on 1 second. Find my key here.
Wow, nice tent.
Yep, this is my Kawasaki house. Yep. And keep the paper right where my battery is. Typically, right here. This is Irving. Not sure what I use. I don't use aftermarket oils. Don't need to. This is the oil I use right here in my bikes. It's what do you call it there? 2-cycle plus, and it's used for multiple 2-cycle motor oils right here, and pre-mix or oil injection systems. This is the one I use right here, and I've never had an issue with it. So it gives you your ratios on the back of how to mix it and everything else and what it's for. And I got this at Irving gas stations, which are found all over the place. So when you're getting these two-stroke oils, you want to make sure you're getting a good quality oil. I don't use Walmart's oil, the 2-strokes. I don't even put that stuff in my chainsaws, to be honest with you. So I get my oils at the gas station. And not a hole-in-the-wall gas station. I always go with the Irvings or the Shells, or we call it the oil companies that have been around for a long time, that have been tested and tried, are the oil I use, and I've never had an issue with it. Since I put this bike together, I've always had an excess oil problem with it, and part of that's most likely been, it was probably an issue before I got the bike. And so now I'm addressing it because I want this bike to run as good as my KE100. This is also going to be bored out 20 over and be gone through. But for right now, we're keeping her factory and we're going to treat her the way she needs to be treated. And part of that is making sure that all the components on this bike run as they should. Getting attacked out here by mosquitoes. It's kind of one of those days. But you can see the oil on my back rim. And that's just not acceptable to me. That's just way excessive. And the fact that I went from a full tank of oil to a half a tank oil is not acceptable. So, and my little guy right here is working on his big wheel now. Trying to get around. Andrew, you changing the spark plug? What's the spark plug?
Oh, there it is.
There it is. What are the numbers on your spark plug? Are there numbers on that spark plug?
59.
Yep, the Lightning McQueen wrench. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to switch out that pump, and this pump is just held on. Put it down. 2 lines here, 2 banjo fittings, and 2 screws. That's it. So I'm just going to swap them out, and I'll show you how to do this one. This right here, this little lip, when you go take off that cable, once it's going to come out, it's pinched right here, so you got to unpinch that. And I used to use a pair of a screwdriver, normally a flathead. They work better, but if you're talented like I am, you can move it out like that. You'll be able to pull that out and disconnect the cable, just like that. And then when you hit the throttle, it'll move it right to the back. Move forward and see if you can just tuck it out of your way. There you go, just like that. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to switch that out and let this thing run and get some of that oil burnt out. It's once you change these, if you have an oiling situation, you're still going to have oil, burning oil crazy until you get it all out of the exhaust. I'm sure there's a puddle inside the exhaust, judging by how much is out there. So this thing's going to have to run and run and run. So anyway, I will be back in a little bit. I'm just going to undo my 2 screws and switch that out real quick. Alright, so also wanted to show you guys this. Make sure you guys use a new gasket on the back side of this, because that right there, that's crankcase, or not crankcase, transmission gear lube. If you don't, that will be leaking into the chamber. So that goes on the back side of the pump. This is the old pump right here. You can see the old gasket on it. Normally, typically when you pull them apart, they leak. But this thing is just, it's hammered. So I got the new pump. I just put the oil line on there so it wouldn't leak. And you can see how there's no oil coming out of it at all. And that right there is going to have to be bled out. So once I get that installed with the 2 screws, and also make sure you use your copper washers on them, so it doesn't, what do you call it there, leak around there either. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, I got the new pump mounted. I wanted to also tell you guys about this. The short screw is on the left, the long screw is on the right, and you can see right here when I put the new pump on that the lines, I don't know if you can see it or not, you should be able to see it, don't line up. Right there, new pump, don't line up. So you can't just, these are not just swap on and forget about them. You have to adjust them, and that's part of the biggest thing I can't stress enough. You got to make sure your adjustments are proper. So what I do is, before, when I install a new pump and I get it screwed down and tight, I only put 1 line on. The one coming off, I'm sorry, I should be down here. Alright, so start over. What I do whenever I install a new pump and gasket, I make sure that my screws are nice and tight. I got my oil line on from this side right here. Before I do anything, after I hook up the line, the cable, and I crimp it back on there. You don't have to go nuts crimping that. Just a little dab will do you know, just roll it over a little bit. And then what I do is I stretch it. I grab my throttle and I open it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Okay? And then I check my adjustment. And I can see that the adjustment is clearly off right there. So my job now is going to be adjusting that oiler to fit. They're all different. These are in different spots. The what do you call it there? The arm is always in different spots. They're never quite the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a 10mm wrench and I'm gonna adjust that up real quick. Okay, so I loosened up my jam nut using a 10mm wrench. Just put on there, loosen it up, and then this right here, the whole thing moves. That's why I don't tighten down this line, because when I go to adjust it, it'll actually, the wrench will move the line out of the way for you. So your last step is going to be hooking up that oil line to feed your motor. So then what I do is, after I get it adjusted to where it looks like the line lines up, I grab my throttle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, let go, let it snap back, and then check it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm dead on. The lines line up perfectly. And what I'm looking for on the line is right here. Now on the body, on the pump, I'll spin around here for you. On the pump, this little piece that sticks off is where your scribe line is on that little bank. And as you can see, when they're on the bikes, they're off. When you hook the throttle up, it adjusts it and lines it up. So mine was clearly way off, and is now in proper alignment. And then what I did was I tightened up my jam nut, snugged it. You don't have to go like super tight. You don't have to over tighten it to the point where it's just going to snap off and break. And then, so then the next step is we're going to crack open that bleeder with the screw and see what we can get out of it. Okay? Right back. Okay, also want to tell you too, before you put the oil pump on, this is the drive right here. It's a little, it looks like a screwdriver tip, like a flathead screwdriver tip. You're going to want to align that so it lines up with the drive gear on the inside when you go to put that back on, so it keys right in. It'll save you a little bit of an argument there. And then what we're going to do is the screwdriver goes through where the grommet was. I crack it loose. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's air coming out and oil leaking, and we got the air out. That's all there is to bleeding these things. That's it. So I'll tighten that up again and then hook up my bottom line right here, which is where this one will go. Not so bad once you get it, you know, situated in there. And before we put the cover, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I'm using one of the screws inside the case to hold the kickstarter in the downward position. And it works perfectly fine that way. As long as you're not banging on the kickstarter and trying to move, you'll bend the screw. But I just leave that one in there like that, and it holds the kickstarter straight down for me so I can access my oil pump with no problems. Alright, so I'm going to tighten this up because I need both hands, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I basically used a Yamaha wrench here. This is 8mm, and because they're nice and thin to get in there, so I just snugged it. I don't monkey tighten it, you don't need to. And then I snugged up the bottom line here so the banjo fitting won't move. There are different types of, this is from a newer KE100. You might notice the only difference is this one's a press fit, where this banjo right here is a, what do you call it there? A banjo fitting. So pretty much the same machine. This pump is a little newer than this one, a little different designed on the internals as well, but will work just absolutely the same. So I put the grommet back in here. Make sure you put your grommets in, double check it. I'm going to release my bolt, and then that's pretty much it. So we're going to let this thing run and burn out all that extra oil that's in this thing. But you can't just let them run because there is you know, unless it's a cool day, these things will overheat. Keep that in mind as well. So that's pretty much how you switch out an oiler. It's held in with 2 screws. Longest screw on the, if you're looking at it, on the right side, the short screw on the left. I showed you how to bleed it. When these things are bulletproof. These oilers I've had no problems with. The only problems I had with them was over oiling. And the good thing about these, when they go, they over oil, they don't under oil. So that's a good thing. They wear out, and then the oil just bypasses the plunger in there, and then it smokes like there's nobody's business. So I'm actually going to put you on my tripod, and I'm going to bring this over there, and I'm going to start up and let some of this oil burn out of it, and you're going to see how bad this thing is smoking. It is crazy. Alright, so I'll be back. Let me get set up, and I'll be back. Okay, this bike right here has not been ran at all today. This is the first start with it since I just did the oiler on it. So I'm going to run over to the bike. I'm going to kick it over and see how hard it is to start. It's also very well loaded up with oil, so it may take a few kicks to get it cranking. There's a lot of smoke coming out the tailpipe on this bike. As you can see, there's a lot of smoke on that thing, so I'm going to let it run out a little bit and see what we can do. It's going to take a while for all that oil to burn out of that thing, but I know, at least I know it's got plenty of oil. Pretty cool though. So we're going to let that thing run for a little bit, and hopefully it burns out of it, and it's going to just take a while. I got the new oiler in, so that should take care of the excessive smoke. If you want to ride this thing on the road, you can't ride it with all that oil in there. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So it's going to take a while for it to build up heat and burn it all out, and you can hear how it hesitates a little bit. It bogs, and it's because it's so oil fouled in there. Like I said, it went through a half a tank of oil just sitting there. I'm surprised it started up on one kick. I really honestly am. That just blows my mind. This is the bike I converted to the electronic ignition, and I'm going to say that probably has a lot to do with it. Because he's just purring right now. Purring. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. That's going to have to burn out the rest of the way, but it has calmed down quite a bit, as you can tell. So it's really just one of those things. It's going to have to burn out the excess oil, and that's just going to take some time. You could take the exhaust off, throw a little bit of heat to it, and help it out that way. I might even pop it off and dip it upside down and drain it out that way. But I could definitely tell by the throttle, it's a lot better. Still really smoky though, so that's all in the exhaust. It's not in the motor. So let it burn out, and we'll go from there. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. If you have any questions or comments on the oiling system, by all means send them my way. Unfortunately, I'd like to show you when it doesn't smoke. I might do a follow-up video when it's all burnt out, but it's just going to take a while for that to happen because everything's just covered in soot, and it's going to go through its burnout process. Heat is going to be the key. Heat. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Please subscribe.